Hey YouTube. So winter camping brings a whole new meaning to the Blue Ox. There are some considerations that you could take into account before you venture out into the winter months and do some camping. So I go through quite a few of them. I'm sure I don't cover them all. So if there's something that I missed or something that you can think of to add, please comment down below. Just wanted to put a collection of things together for folks to think about. Enjoy the video. So, came out and did some winter camping on the property. I guess it's not technically, in my opinion, winter yet because it's not even Thanksgiving, but it's going to be a high of 39 today. Lows should get down to 20, maybe 19 degrees tonight, and we got the same tomorrow night. So I wanted to do a colder weather hike. I'm solo because my girlfriend does not like to winter hike, or winter camp rather. Before I get camp set up, I've been getting some basic stuff out. I'm not going to do much filming tonight, but I did want to point out that before I put the rain fly on, this is a double-walled tent. So problem with double-walled tents in the wintertime is that what's great in the summer, you get this mesh. Creates great ventilation, especially as you open up the windows, but you can see all that open space. Now, it's covered by the rain fly, therefore you don't get moisture in. But in the winter, obviously, it's a little bit breezy today. I think we're expecting 13, 14 mile an hour winds this evening, and the wind chill will go down. And if I did not have that open there, the tent would stay much warmer. Obviously, it's a pretty large tent with just me in it. I'm not going to get a whole lot of body warmth going on that's going to heat that bugger up. But still, I wanted to show you the difference. Now, on some winter hikes that I've done where you actually have a fine powder snow and you start getting a breeze, one of the issues is, and keep in mind that I'm talking about hiking tents, so they're a little closer to the ground, but this one would still do it for the most part if the winds were heavy enough and you had enough snow. You'll actually get fine crystals that will blow in through the mesh. Now this is a pretty tight mesh, so probably not much would get through it. Some of my hiking tents are a little bit more open meshed, but still, I've had snow. I woke up in the morning and had snow blowing in my tent, so you gotta kind of keep that in mind. If you go with a single wall tent or a four-season tent, depending on how you think about it, it will be a single wall. You'll have like just these windows that open here for ventilation, and you won't have the big top opening. Therefore, they're not as good for summertime. You get a lot of condensation inside and everything else, but that's kind of the difference. So I'm going to go ahead and finish setting up camp. All right, so as you can see, I've got the rain fly on it now. The only place that you really get, because I've got it tightened down pretty good on the sides here, so it sits rather flush, but here on the corners is where it opens up and allows that ventilation to come through. So it's not too bad. I've seen tents that have a lot more blow capability, if you will, but as you can see, it's fairly tight there, and I don't think that there are going to be too many issues. Like I said, I'm not too concerned with it. It's only going to get down into the 18, 19 range at the coldest, and I've slept in a lot colder. I've got pretty good gear, so I'm not too concerned with it. Why? Just keep that in mind. All right, so one of the more important things to do when you're winter camping is to stay warm, and I've talked about this Coleman air mattress before, and it's a really good air mattress, but from an R value perspective, even though it's thick and it does keep you off the ground, which I think is very important, it's got a padded top, the R value on this thing is only about 2.75. In contrast, I've got hiker thermal rest mattresses that, very expensive, very fancy. They're not very thick, but they've got special insulating material inside, and they maintain an R value of 6. So a 6 R value is, pretty good. The problem with the thinner mattress, I am a side sleeper, and as I sleep on my side, my shoulder and my hip dig into the air mattress, and it comes closer in contact with the ground, which limits the amount of insulation between me and the cold ground. The worst part about trying to sleep at night in the cold is the cold coming up from the ground. A lot of people just are concerned with air temperatures, but air temperatures are fairly easy to control with a good sleeping bag. So I carry this Thermarest Z-Lite pad with me all the time. I've had it for years. I used to use it hiking. As you can see, it's kind of taken some abuse, but it's still very effective. And actually, most often what I use it for nowadays is I carry it in the Jeep with me when I go out four-wheeling. If I need to get down dirty ground, rough, rocky ground, I'm getting old, my knees hurt. I'll put this down, even fold it up and put it down, and then I've got a platform to get on and keep myself from dinging my knees up. But what it's really great for is it's very lightweight. It folds up accordion style into a fairly small package, and it provides an R value of, it depends on what you're looking at. This one's a little bit old, so I'm going to guess about 1.75. I think this particular Z-Lite one is actually rated at 2, but there you go. We'll see. But one of the cool things about it is you can put it underneath another mattress and you can gain that additional 1.75 to your existing mattress, and it does soften it up a bit, keep you off the ground. Now with this thick mattress, that's not really an issue, but you know, it's handy to use, and I've used it with regular sleeping pads before, and it is effective down to some fairly low temperatures. So that is one of the tricks. I picked this up. If you watched my mattress video and a couple other videos I've done about setting up camp, the mattress came with a real cheap inflator that took D batteries, and it was pretty flimsy. It kept cutting out on me. It still works, but it was having some issues. So I bought this. One of the problems with the other one too was the switch was very accessible. It was just a rocker switch on the side, and it would get set off in the bag, and sometimes, you know, usually you're going to hear it, but if you didn't hear it, and it would wind down the batteries, and then you wouldn't have an inflator to use when you needed it. But so I found this one. I don't really have any recommendation. I was looking for the amount of air that it flowed, a little bit better size, and I wanted it USB rechargeable. Plus I wanted the switch to be a little less likely to get hit accidentally. So with this one, you have to press and hold the switch, and then it comes on. And then you press and hold the switch and it goes off. It's got a little bit better airflow than the bigger D battery one. And I tested this out. I like it. It's pretty cool. So this will be the first time I've actually used it camping though, so we'll see how it works. All right, so that worked really well. It did just as good when I tested it at home, but yeah, seems to have plenty of power. One of the things you want to look out for is making sure you have enough airflow so that as the mattress gets pumped up, it'll actually go that kind of like extra oomph to it. It's got enough oomph to really overfill the mattress. That way when you pull it out, sometimes you lose some air as you're trying to get the valve to seat properly. So yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want your mattress to be too saggy at night, but that's pretty good. And then you want to have enough juice to be able to fill again later if you wind up deflating a little bit. Sometimes in the colder the heat, you'll wind up with different air pressures than what you thought you had. So there you go. I'll get out my sleeping bags. So sleeping bags, an important issue when you're camping in the wintertime. Now when I hiked, I was always using my down. Now I've got some water resistant down, but you have to be very careful to make sure you don't get it wet. Even water resistant down is still going to lose its insulation capability as it gets wet. The synthetic insulation, which this bag is synthetic, is heavier, it's larger, harder to pack in, but it's very resistant to water. Well, not really resistant to water, but when it gets wet, it doesn't really lose its insulation value. When I come out here, I prefer to do the synthetic. This is a very comfortable bag. This is a Wiggy's bag. It is a -20 degree bag, So it's also got an outer covering that'll take it down to a -60-degree bag. Or maybe this is a -30 and it'll take it down to a -60. However that works, it's pretty close, right? I've owned it for a long time, very comfortable. I've done quite a bit of winter camping with it. If I'm expecting extreme temperatures and a lot of moisture, I will take the extra weight and size and I'll actually pack this in a backpack. But this is a fantastic bag, so let me get this thing out and I'll show you. All right, so here you go. Has the Wiggies. As you can tell, it's got a fairly decent sized foot box. You don't want it to be too large, but you don't want it to be too small. You want it sized well enough to where you have a chance to get your body inside and heat that air, and the insulation will keep that heat effect in. You don't want to be too constrained. So that's a good sized foot box. I am 6 foot tall. I wear a size 12 shoe. This bag works perfectly for me, and I think this is just their standard size. Another important feature, at least in my mind, you'll get people that tell you different, is the hood. So one of the things about, I usually use feather down quilts when I hike. The insulation value of a sleeping bag on the bottom doesn't do you any real good when you're hiking in, you know, decent weather. When you're using a quilt in colder weather, one of the issues is, and you can get around it, but you will get drafts coming in underneath of it. Where with a sleeping bag, you don't really have that. And if you notice, they do go to special lengths. They have a draft channel here next to the zipper. So even if you get a slight draft coming in through the zipper, which is unlikely, it'll block that. And this keeps you well insulated. But one of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to breathe into the sleeping bag. So you don't want to pull the sleeping bag up over your face. So that hood has drawstrings on the side and allows me to tighten it up around my head. It keeps my head really warm. But my face, specifically my nose and my mouth, sometimes will get a little cold, and you'll have a tendency to kind of turn to your side. I'm a side sleeper anyways, and then you'll breathe into the bag, which create condensation. It'll create a cold spot, lack of insulation, all those good things, right? So you got to be careful about doing that. Now, because it's a synthetic bag, I don't have as many issues with the moisture, and if I do roll to my side, get a little condensation on the bag, it's usually not too big of a deal, although I've woke up where the side of my sleeping bag was a little bit icy because I was breathing on it. One of the things that you want to do, I carry a couple of hats, which I'll show you, that also keep your head and your face a little bit warmer. Okay, so these are some of the options. A buff works really well. You can it's thin enough. This is merino wool, makes it very nice. Merino wool does a good job of still providing insulation while it's wet. It dries fairly quick. It still provides some insulation. Fantastic. You put it down around your neck, you can pull it up over your face, breathe through it, all those good things. So I usually carry a buff or two in my bag. I don't know that that's my preferred method of sleeping, right? And then you've got your standard hat. Well, this is a little less than standard, but you've got a toboggan hat. So you pull this down over your head and your ears. I think mostly the hood on the sleeping bag takes care of that issue for me. I don't mind it so much. I guess it gets my forehead. This one's actually kind of interesting. My girlfriend's mother bought it for me, and it's actually got this little insert in it, which is a US rechargeable light. So that way I can click on the light and walk around camp. Not that I don't have enough headlamps, but this is kind of cool. It actually held a charge. I hadn't used it in a year, and it was almost fully charged, so that's kind of cool. In extreme weather, I do take this with me, and I've used it a couple of times. So this has got the hood, but it's also got the little mesh here. You pull this up around your nose, it allows you to breathe a little bit, and then this is actually a hood that peels back, so you can kind of adjust this to get the proper warmth, but it will keep your face warm, where this one really will, but it's not as comfortable. I don't think this will maybe a little bit more comfortable, and this is a little thicker and heavier duty in a colder weather. So that's definitely one of the things that you want to consider depending on the temperatures. Now tonight it's only going to get down to 19, and I probably won't need any of those. I'll just use the hood, but I brought them just in case, and I wanted to show them to you as an option. So I'm not much on just sitting around when I come to camp. I've got a little bit of wood split, but it's going to be a cold night, and it's quite likely to be windy, although it's pretty calm right now. So I'm going to want a good fire, and actually having a campfire is one of the things that I enjoy the most when I go camping, whether it's winter or summer. I really don't care. So I'll be splitting some wood, a little activity, and you've got to be careful about the proper layering. I've got a tree back there, if you can see, it's kind of fallen. really not a big deal, but it offends my girlfriend's sensibilities, and she would prefer that it not be there. She thinks it's ugly, so I'll probably get the chainsaw and go back there tomorrow and kind of cut that out. But to say all that, there's that little breeze again. To say all that, the real issue is that I'm active when I'm out here, and then I'm sedentary because I go from chopping firewood to sitting around drinking whiskey at my fireplace. So one of the things that you want to make sure you do is bring the right gear. So I tend to wear a thicker tactical pant. I've got a couple of pairs of merino wool long john pants that go underneath. If I get cold, I'm not wearing them right now, but if I get cold later on, then I can put those on, give myself a little bit of additional warmth. But since I got them out, let's talk about the gloves real quick. So I bring multiple gloves. Now, some of these are more waterproof than other ones, and waterproofness doesn't necessarily mean that they actually stop the water. I've seen plenty of waterproof gloves that don't. I've actually had these are labeled waterproof. I've had these out duck hunting and handling the ropes and everything on the boat. I've actually had these pretty well soaked. So, but for basic stuff, if you're just wearing them in the rain, they're fine. One of the things that the thicker gloves do is you lose that sensitivity in your fingers. You can't do the fine motor skill stuff. So, limited usefulness, very warm though. If you're sitting around a fire, your hands are getting cold, that's great. These are not a super heavy duty material. You can damage them fairly quick if you start doing some really crazy working, like chopping wood or hauling firewood, different things like that. So then I've got these. These are a little tougher, a little less insulated, little more effective though when it comes to doing some lake camp chores and things of that nature, right? So these are pretty good gloves. So I like to bring a combination. These are my go-to for many years. These are a very warm glove, not the warmest I've got, but pretty warm glove, heavy leather, and you can see they've been really worn. I have found these gloves to be very water resistant in basic, just handling wet stuff, and they are super tough and have done me well. So I will use these tonight probably when I'm putting logs on the fire and things of that nature. So, and then this is a perfect example. I wore these earlier when I first got in. It was a little bit cold, but you can see they've taken a little bit of wear and tear on the surface. They're not really a tough glove. They've got a fleece, so obviously they're not waterproof, but they're very warm. They actually come up on your wrist a little bit so that they protect you a little bit more. They're very, very flexible gloves, very, very nice. So I usually carry multiple gloves, usually not this many. I usually carry a couple of pairs of gloves. Like I might bring these and these if it's not going to be too cold. If it's going to be real cold, I might bring all three of these. Just depends on what I intend to do and what the weather conditions are like. So that's basic glove layout. Let me pull out some of my clothes. All right, so on to the clothing. So you know about layering, and layering is super important, especially as I mentioned, being active out here and then going sedentary. Your temperatures are going to change. The last thing you want to do is go out and start chopping wood, get sweaty, have your clothes saturated in sweat, and then come back and sit in camp and just sit there. So you're gonna start freezing. Your body's going to have a hell of a time trying to adjust, and if you don't have the right clothing, it's not going to be able to adjust to the dampness and wick it away from your body. So it's important that you plan on wicking. You want to have the optional extra clothes. Even when I hiked, I would take an additional extra clothes just in case, right? So start off, one of the things that I feel is important in all those conditions is the proper underwear. So I use the Merino Smart Wool underwear, antimicrobial. It keeps down the smells, it wicks the moisture away, and it provides good insulation no matter what. Not a great topic, but hey, it is what it is. It's important, right? So I always carry the Merino wool or the Smart Wool underwear. Then as far as pants, you want something tough. If you're going to be out camping, you're going to get dirty, so you bring two pairs. This is my spare pair. I use the tactical pants. They're good and tough. They're not going to rip on me, and they got plenty of pockets to do what I need to do. I've even got in this pair, it's got the ability to put the knee pads down underneath this. It's a foam knee pad. I very rarely wear them, but every now and again, if I'm going to go out, especially in snowy conditions, I'll put those in. It'll stop the moisture from seeping through. Okay, so cotton kills, they say, right? And the reason is because of what I mentioned. You'll get materials that will soak up moisture, don't provide good insulation when they're wet, and then you're going to get cold. So I do tend to bring, because let's face it, cotton is comfort. I love my flannel shirt, so I'll bring a flannel shirt, but usually it's just an extra layer that I can throw on if I feel like I want to do that, right? So I don't wear it on a regular basis. What I will do is I'll wear a sports shirt as my base layer. Something very light and something that it has the ability to wick the moisture away from the body and dry quickly, right? And I usually bring a couple of these, so that way as I work and get sweaty, I can actually take one of these and hang it up on a branch. I actually always bring line with me, so I'll throw a clothesline out, I'll throw that over, and within no time these will be dry, right? So I got two, so I can layer that up as necessary. So then I bring along kind of traditional long johns, if you, well, I guess these aren't traditional long johns, but they're kind of a long john, right? I've got a pair of these in shirt and in pants, and I'll wear those on occasion. Those are kind of a spare for me. My kind of go-to, and you'll notice the trend here, merino wool. So I've got the long johns and the long sleeve shirt, merino wool. Love these things. Very, very warm, well insulated, do a great job. What I also like to do is I have these down inside my sleeping bag with me at night. I can pull these on real fast, and then I can exit the tent if I have to use the restroom. And I'll kind of talk about the importance of that later, but this is a great underlayer if you need the additional warmth. Now, it's not going to get cold enough. I probably won't be using them this trip, but there you go. Socks, also very important. And here we go again. Merino wool. I love the wool socks. But I also believe in layering the socks, right? So I don't go anything super crazy now. I've got just a single pair of merino wool socks underneath these. It's really important that you loosen the laces and make sure that you have plenty of room to move your feet around. You don't want to restrict the blood flow at all. But and sometimes the heavier socks can do that. So sometimes, like this is a medium weight sock, and I'll do sock liners. I swear by these sock liners. They're just a standard, nothing fancy. They keep your foot from rubbing inside the shoes, so they'll reduce the blisters. I won't say eliminate, but they'll reduce the blisters. I've hiked many a mile and not gotten a blister, and I blame it on these. These things are fantastic. So sock liners, different thicknesses of wool socks, fantastic for any of that kind of stuff, right? So then let's go to the colder weather gear. So one of the things that I learned in my hiking days, because I was always trying to make the most out of what I carried. So, puffy jacket. And I've got them with and without hoods. I like the one with the hood a little bit better, just because if it's windy like it's going to be tonight, I can pull that up around the back of my head and my ears, and that's going to stop that airflow from getting down my neck. I could wear the buff, or I could do a number of things, but this works really well. The problem with these puffy jackets, they're really warm. I absolutely love them, but they're very sensitive. If you walk around in the woods, you will catch this on something, you'll tear it, you'll start losing your down. If it gets wet, obviously that's bad. It reduces the effectiveness of the jacket. So this is a fantastic thing, but if you layer it with a raincoat, so this is just a standard hiker raincoat. It's nothing super fancy. This is a Marmot. I don't remember what I paid for it. It's just a standard hiker raincoat. I think this one's got pit zips. No, this one does not. I've got one that does. But this gives you the wind resistance. This is not super resistant to wind. This is. You put this over this, and now you got that extra layer. You've got moisture protection. You've got wind protection. And, I mean, a little bit of extra insulation layer, right? You're kind of keeping that warmth inside. So this is a fantastic combination. Now, since I'm coming out this time and I have the ability to bring a little bit more with me, I actually brought this shell, which I really like. It's a little bit longer. It's very loose on me. I don't think the zipper works all that well. It's somewhat water resistant, and this will probably be a little bit better. It has a hood of its own too. This will be a little bit better this evening when I'm sitting out here later at night. So that's kind of the drill. Now, I mentioned getting up and using the restroom at night. It's very important if you're in cold weather, if you feel the need to go, which at my age, trust me, I always have to get up and go at night. Don't lay there. It's cold. You don't want to get out of your bag, but it's important that you do, especially in extreme temperatures. So here's the problem. As your body collects urine in your bladder, your body will do everything it can to keep that urine warm. and it's going to expend all of its energy keeping the urine warm, and your extremities will get cold. So you're going to have to force yourself out to go to the restroom. So here's the way I roll with it. I told you I've got these wool leggings and a long sleeve shirt, which are good enough for a quick dart out and use in a restroom. It's loose, not a big deal, easy to get into. They're going to be inside my sleeping bag with me, so they'll already be warm. And then these are just fantastic. Now, I very rarely get to use these because my girlfriend discovered them and she loves them, and she usually wears them when we're out here. As a matter of fact, I've got another pair on order. But these are phenomenal. They are a slightly rough rubber textured bottom. I wouldn't go hiking in these, but it's fairly resistant bottom. You can walk around camp no problem. It's a synthetic insulation, fairly thick. It's got the drawstring at the top. It's got a fleece, see that, a fleece pad in the bottom of it. And these things are fantastic. So you get up in the middle of the night, you pull your wool long johns on, keep yourself warm. Maybe you throw a jacket over top to keep yourself a little bit warmer depending on the temperatures, and then you pull these on your feet really fast. You step out, you walk out, you find yourself a good tree, you empty that bladder so that your body can go back to warming itself and not your bladder, and you're good. You come back, these are easy to pull off, you get back in your sleeping bag real quick and get that bag warm back up. So that's kind of the drill on my camping gear as far as clothing goes. It's all about layering, it's all about keeping dry, and ultimately staying warm. So one of the downsides to camping in the winter is it gets dark earlier. So it's just now 3:10 in the afternoon and it's already starting to get dark. I think sunset is projected for 4:30 today. So you've got limited time to set up camp. I had a lot of stuff I wanted to do. I had a couple of new game cams I wanted to place in different locations. I got that set up. I did cut this tree back here as I said I was going to do. I hauled out most of the small stuff. I left the big stuff there. I'll probably take care of that tomorrow, but it looks a lot better. Here's all the small stuff. Another nice thing about this is I've got some great firewood here. This is all pine, obviously. It's got pine cones on it. It'll burn hot and fast, and it will really get my fire going. So then my larger stuff, once I get it split up, which I still got to do, we should have a nice fire. I don't plan on staying up too late tonight, but you know, we'll see how that changes. I do like to sit up around the fire. So aside from that, we got camp all set up. It's going to be an easy night. I'm just going to be doing some hiker meals. I've got some chili, some frozen chili that I might just heat up in my jet boil. I haven't 100% decided yet, but hey, you know what? I'm by myself. I can do whatever the hell I want to, so that's cool. Yeah, so that's cool. I'm going to get busy chopping some of this stuff up and getting ready for the fire tonight. All right, so another interesting topic for winter camping is water. A lot of times we totally take this for granted, and it's super important. It's more important to some of us than others. For instance, for me, I have some medications that I need to take every night, and if my water is frozen, that's going to be rather difficult. Now, today is not anywhere near cold enough to freeze my water during the day, but it's something that you should consider. Something probably a lot more likely is that I'm going to get up and really need a cup of coffee bad. And if my water's frozen, I got to jump through some hoops to make some coffee. So there's a couple different ways to do it. So I've been using smart water bottles for years. I like the sport cap on them. It makes it really easy to drink out of. And these things are almost bomb-proof. They're super lightweight and they can take a beating. I've used them on hiking trips for years. I've had, I don't know, a good 100, 200 miles of hiking with the same. I usually carry 2 large ones, but 2 bottles. So they get a little scuffed up and ugly looking, but they actually do pretty well. But now they're not going to insulate real well. So if I leave, which I'm going to leave this out tonight on the table, it's probably going to freeze. Now, I don't think it's going to be cold enough to freeze solid, but it's going to freeze to the point where I'm not going to get much water out of it. Now, I have a couple others in the refrigerator. Now, I've never done this before. I have a suspicion that the fridge is going to insulate and maintain a standard temperature, and my water will not be frozen inside. We'll see how that all pans out, right? Nalgene's. Nalgene's are a good way to do it. You can take a Nalgene, and one of the tricks for warming up the sleeping bag, I'm a little cautious with it. But you take an Nalgene, you make sure it's sealed really well and it won't leak, and you can actually heat up the water, put the water in there hot, and then I tend to put it in a Ziploc bag if I'm going to try it, make sure that it's not going to leak, and then put it down in my sleeping bag and keep you warm. Now, a lot of people tell you to put it near your feet because they probably have issues with their feet getting cold, but if you're in a super cold situation, it's really almost survival at that point. You put it up near your groin, and you get the most warmth to the blood flow, and that'll warm you up. So water's important. Actually, it's starting to snow a little bit. Well, that should make it interesting. I noticed on some of my game cams yesterday we had some snow in the evening. Not much, but just a couple flakes. So water's important. Now, one thing that I did do is I brought my my old metal coffee pot. So I don't bring the metal coffee pot to make coffee because, well, no one, I actually have my coffee press, which I prefer. But it is a handy way to heat up water even if it freezes overnight. So the trick, though, is to remember to actually put water into the pot prior to going to bed. And that way you get up, you get your fire lit, and once you get the fire going, you just put the steel coffee pot over near the fire, and it will heat that water up, and it'll melt the ice. So that'll give you enough water to at least get your coffee down. So yeah, lots of interesting things with winter camping that you don't really think of that much. So on the waterfront, I also have my water packs. So I've got Rotopacks, and I've got these generic ones. And I've never actually utilized them in the wintertime. Actually, I've owned them in the wintertime. I never really checked to see how badly they froze. So it'll be a good experiment to see. These are a little thicker walled than, like, obviously my Smart water bottle. And I've also got the rinse kit. I'm going to see how well that does in the cold, although I am going to put it into the back of the truck so it's not exposed to any serious temperatures. One of the reasons is because of this hose. I definitely don't want the hose to actually freeze and split. I don't know how much water actually remains in it all the time, so I'll be a little bit cautious, but I'm curious to see how much of the rinse kit I could actually depend on during the winter. But another great topic on winter camping, so you've got to eat, right? So typically we have camp stove, but I did not really want to mess with any serious food this time around, so I'm actually going to do hiker meals and use my Jetboil. But you have to be cautious when you do any kind of winter camping as far as how you're going to cook your meals. What fuel are you going to use? So this tends to be a little bit more expensive, but this is actually a mixture. If I can get turned around here. This is the Power Gas. It's a mixture of propane, isobutane, and butane. So basically, if you're in severe cold temperatures, less than about 11 degrees, some of these fuels sort of become unstable, and definitely butane. This mixture, propane is next in line to white gas. You've got gasoline and kerosene and white gas. They're really good in cold temperatures. I've got a whisper light that I bring out during those times. But if I want to use my Jetboil, because I really love my Jetboil, it heats up stuff really fast. I can get coffee really early in the morning. But you typically would use a butane, but that's not going to do well in cold weather. It's going to, and the pressure will actually decrease with the cold, and you'll get minimal output. The flame won't be that hot, and it'll take forever. This stuff does a lot better. It'll do fairly well. And then obviously your pure propane does better, and then your white gas is phenomenal. So keep in mind that in the colder weather, not all stoves will operate as you hope that they would. Now, I carry as a backup a small titanium folding wood stove that I can, get some little sticks and get that flamed up. It's not as effective, but it will burn pretty well. Now, if it's super cold and windy, that's not going to work really super well, but it's better than nothing. So just keep in mind, fuel's important winter camping. So we got the Jetboil fired up. We're going to heat some water. I brought some frozen chili, and it's been such a cold day it hasn't thawed out at all, but I didn't really intend for it to thaw out. I'm going to go ahead and add some hot water to this pan and thaw it down some and get it ready to go. This is just some stuff that I made, and I vacuum sealed it. So I've also got some so just general hiker meals. I haven't eaten hiker meals in a while, and I actually do like them. Biscuits and gravy for breakfast. I love that stuff. Lasagna, beef stroganoff, my favorite. And then sweet and sour pork is okay, something different. So I've got those to choose from. I don't know what I'll eat and what I won't eat. And as you know, I've got a thing for the Basil Hayden Dark Rye. It brings up an interesting topic. Alcohol in cold weather conditions, you've got to be careful. So what alcohol does is it shrinks the capillaries in the skin near the surface, and the body will rush some of its core warmth up to the surface. That gives you a false sense of warmth, but you're stealing warmth from your core, and it can be detrimental later on. So you've got to be very careful with alcohol in cold temperatures. Make sure you're being careful. But that's always the case with alcohol. Drink in moderation, be cautious. Alcohol can make you make some really bad decisions, like getting married, premature parenthood, all those good things. So remember, moderation, folks, but enjoy. So I'm getting a little tiny bit of snow. I wasn't actually expecting that. I thought it was a little too warm, but we're at about, I don't know, 20. Well, let's see here. Where are we sitting at? Yeah, we're probably right there at that 31 mark, I would imagine. But anyways, it is getting a little cold. There's a little bit of a breeze, not too bad. So I decided to get the fire going, get some warmth while I'm waiting on my dinner. As you can tell, the pine that I cut from the log in the back did a really good job. It's doing a really hot fire, so we should have a nice fire tonight. So I woke up to a crisp 21 degrees this morning. Was real comfy in my sleeping bag last night. I did get up about 3 in the morning to go to the restroom, and I did have a little bit of unfrozen water that I was able to drink out of this that I left out on the table. The one that was in the refrigerator was completely and totally thawed. Since I had it out, it's refrozen because it's 21 degrees out, but it did really good in the refrigerator. So that is a workable solution. The Rotopax containers, the Rotopack container did really well. It is very thick walled. Obviously you're hanging on the side of your vehicle, so they make them a little bit tough. And the nozzle, it's still frozen. Took a minute to get this out, but once I did, then there's mostly liquid, not ice, in there, and I was able to pour enough out to where I'm going to be able to make my breakfast and make my coffee this morning. So that's good. One of the things that you need to know about winter, things don't, well, at any time really, but things don't work well in the cold or the extreme heat. So I don't think it had anything to do with the cold, but my stove didn't want to light. I had to light it manually with my ferro rod, but I was able to get that lit, so that's doing well. But the burner itself is not at its peak like it used to, so I suspect there's something wrong with the burner. And that's something you have to be prepared for. All my food and my coffee relies on that stove. So like I said, I've got alternate method. I can use my pot over the fire, or however I want to do that. But you got to keep that in mind. Plus, plastic, even steel, things break in the cold, so you have to be prepared to experience some breakage. I actually couldn't get my GoPro running first thing this morning because of the cold, so it zapped the batteries pretty good. But I've actually seen knife blades get somewhat brittle in extreme colds and snap if they're put to hard use, and obviously plastic busts pretty easily, so you got to be prepared for those things. But hey, it's a great morning, and I'm going to get on with my coffee and my breakfast. So there you go. It was a fantastic weekend for camping. I spent 2 nights out. First night it did get down to 21. Second night it only got down to 25, but it was a really good experience. I really enjoyed it. I got to utilize my gear. It's always good to brush up on your skills with winter camping. And as a note, the rinse kit, I put it out the second day in the sunshine near the fire, and it thawed within probably an hour, hour and a half, and I was able to use it effectively to wash the dishes. So, hey, everything went great. Look, so if you've got any comments or questions, post them down below, and thanks for watching.